Fala galera, na paz! Bem-vindos a mais um vídeo do Supremo Game. Dessa vez estaremos trazendo mais uma entrevista, dessa vez uma entrevista um pouquinho diferente do que vocês estão acostumados a ver. Dessa vez a entrevista vai ser com um gringo e basicamente a entrevista vai ser legendada praticamente toda, tá? Então vocês vão conseguir entender o que ele vai dizer, porque eu vou legendar tudinho. Então, como a entrevista é em inglês, eu também vou ter que falar inglês. Então vambora! Today's interview we will be interviewing Robert Hornbeck, also known as Sage. How are you doing, man?
Good. How are you today?
I'm fine. A bit nervous, but I'm fine.
Good. So am I. That helps.
Sage has worked on various gaming companies like Riot Games. Which other companies have you worked?
I've worked at 2K Games at their department in California, Northridge. It was primarily doing quality assurance and compatibility testing. I was basically checking to see if the games would run on different hardware. So I would get, we would get the games in, the latest builds from the developers, and we would install it on a variety of computers, each with different types of hardware, everything from the really, really powerful stuff to the really, really weak to see how well it would perform. And then from that, the developers would be able to either improve the game, optimize it so that it would run better on lower quality systems, or they'd be able to use that information just to determine what the minimum requirements are that are printed on the back of the box or whenever you purchase the game. Let's see, I did some quality assurance testing for a couple games at Jack Specific, but as you mentioned, probably the more notable work was at Riot Games and eventually working on ISS.
Yep. And how did you start working with games? What was your first experience?
I've enjoyed basically creating games my whole life. My family, when I lived with my family, we lived kind of up in the hills, so we weren't able to go out and see friends all the time. So myself and my brother would kind of play a lot, and we would kind of make our own games, and just like kids would do. But it's something that I enjoyed doing as I grew older. It's just making games. And I guess I realized I want to do it professionally when I started thinking more about how I could make games better, or how I would make a game that was a little different than the one I was playing, being inspired by the video games that I was playing. And I knew, I learned fairly early on that getting into quality assurance testing and stuff like that was kind of a way to get into the industry and see what it was like and which way I could go.
What do you think about your future in the gaming industry?
I'm pretty excited. There are certainly things that I worry about. It's very competitive. But the more I've been in the industry and the more people I meet, I make more connections, people that I can learn from and work with, but they also help me understand what qualities I have to give. My passion is in game design and developing the user experience, and a lot of people claim to want to be game designers and claim that they are or could be really good game designers, and I believe a lot of people could, but I'm also told by a lot of other people that it's a lot harder than you think, and the more I do it, the more I realize how much of a challenge it is, but also how exciting that challenge is. Some people aren't up to the task, just like I'm not really up to the task of becoming a programmer, but there's people who excel at doing that, and they do a really good job. But I guess to answer your question more clearly, I'm excited about my future in the industry because not only am I working on video games now with my current job and have in the past, but I also am working on games as side projects. Working on a phone application game right now with some friends, which is called Kernips. I'll provide a link for that for you. We're still working on that. We hope to try and release it in a couple of months, or at least by the end of the year. But I also enjoy making tabletop games. I've made 2 card games, one that can be played at a table, another that can be played with friends or at school or at work. And I'm working on another card game and would like to actually build more board games and stuff like that. And I'd like to sell those as well. But in any case, whether or not I'm getting paid a lot to do it, I enjoy making games, and I'm going to probably continue to do that for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And what was the best game you already worked?
I would have to say probably one of the greatest game development experiences I've had, and all of them have had their own qualities, but probably one of the best experiences was at Riot Games, developing League of Legends. At that time, when I started there was about maybe 15 people working at the company. And if you're familiar with Riot Games now, I mean, they have thousands of people. So I got there very, very early in their development. So I was able to see them developing a game before they knew it was going to be successful, before, you had all the wildly talented, artists and programmers and engineers and all these different people working on it. And what really made that experience great for me is it taught me a lot of the game development and design standards that I use today. Their focus, and this was one of the first times I experienced, but the company's focus was, it was all about what you deliver. If they want you to do something, it doesn't necessarily matter how you do it, as long as you can deliver it, and then you present it and you show your work. And that was really exciting because it was kind of an opportunity for you to self-manage yourself. They weren't going to tell you exactly how to do your job. They just wanted you to get the job done. And it allowed a lot of people to get creative and do some really neat things. And I met a lot of interesting people there, a couple people I still know. And I can excitedly say that I was the guy who named Baron in the Summoner's Rift. And that's something that, it might not seem like a big impact on the game, but it's pretty cool to know when people say like, oh, let's go get Baron, let's go do that. It's kind of cool to hear like, hey, they're saying the name that you gave it. So that was a pretty neat impact. So definitely Riot Games was a great experience.
Yeah. Have you worked on a project that they've totally wrong?
Let's see. Have I worked on a project that went totally wrong?
Yep.
Let's see. Well, they've all kind of had their troubles, their ups and downs. Even League of Legends had their troubles. If you're familiar with Infestation, it's got its troubles and controversy. But even Infestation has been, very successful. So let's see. It's kind of hard to say. I would say everything that I've worked on has done all right. I'm trying to think if there was anything that just completely failed. Well, at 2K Games, the first game I worked on there was actually Duke Nukem Forever. And that one had a lot of hype, had a lot of buzz, and was initially received fairly well, but I think in the long run it didn't work out very well, just because the game would have been great had it come out, 10 years ago or more. But the type of gameplay was not quite modern enough, and a lot of the humor was, it was kind of, it was a little dated, I guess, in that sense. But I really can't think of anything that just completely failed. I mean, I guess you could say the card games that I made were sort of a failure because I haven't sold any yet. But I also didn't make them with the intention of selling a lot and making a lot of money. It was kind of an experience like, hey, I want to see if I can do it. I want to see if it's fun, and to me that was successful. So I think I've been pretty lucky so far that everything I've worked on has been successful in some way and not a complete flop.
Yep. And what do you recommend for people who want to work in the games industry?
The advice that was given to me was to get a quality assurance job, a job where you can test games and kind of get to do that. And I would still suggest that. However, that was the route that I focused on. That was the route that I took, was focusing on and getting into QA, because a lot of people told me that was going to be it. Once you get into QA, it's just going to keep kind of growing from there. But what I quickly learned was that because of the way the industry has changed, QA is not the best and most easy way to actually get in to the jobs that you might be more passionate about, with art or programming or design. So really the best advice, in addition to that, is to constantly be making games. If you want to be a professional game developer, you should constantly be making games. And it sounds a little contradictory. It's like, well, how am I going to make games if I'm not making games? But the idea is, if you've got an idea, if you've got an idea for a card game, make a card game. If you're an artist and you have ideas for video game characters, draw them, create them, make them look really good, and find people who are making games and offer to help develop that art. If you're a programmer, make some simple games, and don't just try and make one big game. Try making lots of little games, because a degree, schooling, all that stuff, it will help you. But what companies really want is experience. They want a vision. They want someone who kind of knows what they're doing. And so if you can go in there and say, okay, I have a programming degree and I've also made, a dozen little games, or I've got an art degree and I've drawn all these pictures and I have all these characters and all these little games, these independent games have used my pictures, that's going to go a lot further. And if you're looking to get into game design, showing that you've designed card games and little video games that actually work, board games, all that stuff is really going to help contribute, because it's proving that you're capable of doing it and you're not just capable of thinking about it.
Yeah. How was the process of recruitment to Infestation?
Okay, so recruitment is in terms of like the hiring process?
Yep.
So the company is very small, as you're probably familiar with some of our posts. The company's still very small, but it's growing. And it really depends. It depends what the company needs at that time. And this goes for really any company. But at the company's current state, what's really important for us right now are senior level developers. So senior level, and by senior I mean like people with a lot of experience, senior level programmers, and senior level artists. Those are very important, because those are the people who are going to be creating the core foundation of the product. They're going to be fixing things, they're going to be building new things and stuff like that. Yep. And as we develop a team, as the team grows, we're going to need more of them so we can do more bigger things. And then of course, take on the load of any bug fixes and stuff like that. Other departments such as customer support, quality assurance, community management, design even, takes kind of a lower priority, because at the moment we don't need more people than we currently have. Now, we would like more people, but it's one of those things where we need more programmers. We would like some more customer support people or some more designers and stuff like that. There's no official way right now to actually apply to the company. It's primarily just been kind of word of mouth, people connecting with other people that they are friends with or from other companies. But I think when the company gets a little bigger, when it starts to expand a little faster, we will probably start to advertise more job opportunities for people openly. But right now it's much smaller, and it's a much more controlled environment, so it needs to be very, very specific.
In the time that you're not messing with games, what do you usually do?
Well, if I'm not professionally working on games, I'm casually working on games. There's very few things in my life that I do that aren't games, except, as I know you're aware, is occasionally work on music. And that's partially why it takes me sometimes, 6 months or a year to finish one song, because, I'm so busy doing other things and I just kind of do it for fun. But yeah, I'll work on some music, and then of course if I'm not at work, I usually am at home and I'm kind of coming up with new little game ideas and writing that down. And like I was mentioning, I'm kind of working on another card game right now, so that's something I'm kind of doing as well. But yeah, other than music, I love cooking. I really like to cook. I have friends over and cook for them. But yeah, that's pretty much what I like to spend my time on.
Yeah. How did you start creating music?
So the first time I've always been into music and singing and stuff like that. Not necessarily professionally, but for fun. It's just been something I've enjoyed. Yeah. Growing up watching, Disney films and all the songs that they had in there, and then later watching, movies and hearing these exciting musical scores like from, Star Wars, and any of those exciting kind of epic films, but also from video games. I remember it was kind of funny when I was much younger. I was playing Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic 3, yeah, with my brother, and we were in the Sky Sanctuary zone, whatever it was. It was one of the last levels, and I loved the music so much that I told my brother, when I get older, I want to play that music at my wedding. Like, that was like how much I liked the music.
Wow.
And I'm probably gonna have to do that now just because I made that promise. But it was one of those things where, music really had a big impact on me, and not lyrics so much, not the singing, but the actual music. In high school, I got a program called MTV Music Generator, and it was a real simple program that you could install on your computer and basically using samples create your own music. And I did. I created probably 12 or 14 different tracks of music, and that was the first time I actually made music. Fast forward years and years later, dubstep music starts to come out, and it was really popular, and I convinced myself that, I could do better. There was so much dubstep, and I was thinking, I could make something so much better than that.
Yeah.
So I got Fruity Loops, FL Studio, which is what I work in now, and I basically tried to make what I was calling better dubstep, and failed miserably. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't even create okay dubstep, in my opinion. But what I did create was more trance and kind of dance music, and I really enjoyed doing that, and that kind of re-sparked my desire to make music and do that, and I've been doing that off and on for a while now.
Yeah, I love your music, just to tell.
Thank you, I really appreciate that. When I hear people say that they like my music, it inspires me to do more, you know, because I do it. I make music for myself a lot, so when I'm not really feeling up to it, I don't do it. But when other people say they like it or they want to hear more, that inspires me. And I actually, because of this interview this morning, I opened up Fruity Loops and started playing around with some tracks again. So I'll have to get back into it.
What is the meaning of the name Fractal Labs on your SoundCloud?
Okay, so Fractal Labs. So the title Fractal Labs actually came from one of my card games. One of the card games is called The Creature, and it takes place in like a laboratory. And I was kind of inspired by like Aperture Labs, like from Portal. And fractals are basically, how do you describe it? It's like, imagine something that's made up of a shape. Or something, imagine something like a triangle, right? And that triangle is made up of lots of little triangles. And those little triangles are made up of smaller triangles, and it goes infinitely small and infinitely big, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of an example of a fractal. And if you look up fractal, you'll see it's these swirly patterns that are basically, you know, it's a mathematical thing that kind of, it's like this constantly evolving shape that is infinitely big and infinitely small. So the word fractal was just kind of a cool sounding word, but also it kind of had this kind of neat, spacey kind of concept to it. The idea that it could be infinitely big and infinitely small, and it's all made out of the same thing, was just kind of a neat idea. And I applied that to the music because I didn't really feel like my name, like Robert or Hornbeck or even R. Hornbeck, was really all that marketable. So I kind of liked this Fractal Labs, you know, I'm creating a mad scientist coming up with these crazy experiments of sound, you know?
Yeah.
And that was kind of the idea behind it. It kind of stuck, you know? I wasn't absolutely convinced that was the best solution, but it's been kind of fun, and I think that still sounds pretty neat and would look good on a CD cover.
Yeah, and a question that everyone tell me to ask for you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you create name Sage?
Okay, so the name Sage, I had actually never used the name Sage until I started working on Infestation. What happened was one day, while we were working, Kook, the community manager guy at the time, he made this sound, this kind of a, you know, like something he had just tasted or something didn't sound right. And we turn around and he's sitting there and he's got his hands on his knee and he's kind of bent over his chair a little bit and he looks kind of sick. And we're like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I took a drink of my shake because he had just got back from a run, and he had made like a energy drink in the blender. And he said he took a drink and it tasted really, really intense. And we all thought, okay, all right, fine. And we kind of went back to working. And, you know, a second later, he says it again. And we're like, you know, what's going on? What's the matter? And he starts to explain that his drink just tastes weird. And we're like, well, what do you mean weird? And so, you know, we passed the bottle around, we're smelling it, and it smelled weird. And I'm not sure if you know, but it was like Tiger Balm or Icy Hot, you know, this kind of, or like Vicks Vapor Rub, you know, it had this really strong kind of eucalyptus or something smell. Yeah. So he's like, well, it's healthy, right? So I'm just going to have to finish it. You know, just because it tastes bad doesn't mean it's not good for you. First lesson, right?
Yeah.
So I had to investigate. I'm just the kind of person that's like, okay, that seems weird. So I went over and I started looking at all the ingredients that he was putting in his food or in the drink. And I found something that smelled like what he was drinking. And it was sage oil. And I'm looking at the bottle and I'm telling him like, hey, did you add this stuff? And he's like, oh yeah, I added like, 5, 6, maybe 10 drops. Not a big deal, like that's what I read you're supposed to do. And I'm looking around, and finally I look in the tiniest corner on the bottle, and there's this really fine print, and the print says not for internal use. So basically you're not supposed to eat it. And so I'm like, Kook, you should not be drinking that. And we look it up and find out you're not supposed to be drinking it. It's supposed to be for like aromatherapy. You're supposed to put it in water and like boil it so that it, you can smell it and kind of inhale it, but you're not supposed to be drinking it. So of course we all kind of laughed and had some fun, and he didn't die, but he had like some crazy headaches or something like that. And because of that, I had, at that same time I had to create a character in the game, because I was going to be running around, looking for people and doing kind of customer support stuff.
Yeah.
So I named my character Sage McOil, right? Because it was a female character, and I just thought, hey, whatever. No one's going to see the name anyways, because I was invisible.
Yeah.
But what happened was, at some point, Quarantine Chris, one of the other streamers, actually saw my character because I teleported to him, and there was a split second before getting to him that he could see me before I turned invisible. And so he saw the name Sage McOil, and immediately he thought, oh my gosh, it's someone cheating. And I told him, I said, no, I'm just a developer. I'm just flying around, checking on people, making sure everything's okay. And so he and his friends at the time just started calling me Sage. And that name just started getting around, and everyone started calling me Sage. And before you knew it, it was just, all right, you're Sage now. And that's ultimately where the name came from.
Yeah, that's a huge history, a good history. Some people on the Infestation forum requested me to ask some questions to you. Do you care?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead. I mean, there's certain things I won't be able to answer, but I'll tell you if I can.
Yeah. Question from Brazil. What do you think of the Brazilians?
I love the Brazilians because they add a lot of character to, I think, the entire experience. This is actually the first time I've actually dealt with or I should say, the first time I've dealt as much with a non-US community. Because there's so many Brazilians who play the game. And what I really appreciate about them is their excitement and passion about the game. I mean, everyone who plays it, dedicated, is excited and passionate. But there's this kind of national pride and Brazilian pride, and this real appreciation for being Brazilian and the excitement of, having these Brazilian clans. Like I don't really hear about, the American clan or the Australian clan as much as I hear about the Brazilian clans. There's that passion there. So I would say in general, the Brazilians are great, and they are a very large and dedicated part of our community. So I have to appreciate them for that.
Yeah. Question from Nailox. What is the future of Infestation?
Wow, it's kind of hard to say. A lot of the decisions as to where the game progresses are not always in my grasp. A lot of the focus is to make sure that the game is running smoother. As you remember, there were a lot of things that the company promised, vehicles, strongholds, and things like that, that we needed to make sure we delivered on, because that was part of the initial promise. And after doing that, a lot of the attention is now really trying to focus on fixing things, dealing with the cheaters, and that's really the highest priority. And that's going to take a lot of time. That's going to take a lot of work. Unfortunately, Artemis is spending a lot of time working on, or with the Fair Fight guys to really improve that process, and we've seen some really, really spectacular improvements and changes in the last week or so because of it. The customer support department has finally cleared out all the extra customer support tickets that were backed up. So now we're able to respond to people within a day. And because they have more time, they're able to get in the game, stop more cheaters, and help people. We even have people who have gone around and are helping people in the game. And some people were talking about how they had accounts that one of their accounts they couldn't log into it, and we could help them out because we found them in the game. Or people had an item that they dropped and it got stuck behind a wall, and we can help them with stuff like that. And we're hoping to be able to do more of that so we can just improve the experience.
Question from Carlos. This is your first interview?
Yeah, I would say this is probably the first interview I've had. Yeah, I would say so. Yes.
Nice.
Success.
So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the interview. You have some kind of professional contact?
Let's see. The best way I think is to probably just use my Twitter. We will probably. I'll probably announce it on my Twitter when we have it ready. But when our cell phone app is done, I'll probably give a more professional contact there. But yeah, the best place to contact me right now is on Twitter, or you can try and connect to me on LinkedIn and find my profile there.
Yep. So concluding, I would like to congratulate you on your engagement.
Yes, thank you very much.
You would like to say anything else? Feel free.
I want to thank you for inviting me to this interview. It's very fun. It's very exciting, and I love talking to a community of people who are gamers. The people I'm building things for. But I also would love to be someone who can help people who are interested in the industry get into the industry and know how it works and stuff like that, because it's tough. You don't always have people to tell you what to or how to do it. And I know growing up, there were plenty of people who said, that's for kids, don't do that, but it's not. It's a very big industry. It's a lot of work, but it's also a lot of fun. And so I really appreciate that, and I certainly hope to talk to you and you guys again.
Yep, thank you very much too. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you enjoyed. In the description we have the links, Sage SoundCloud, Twitter, link I don't know what, and if possible take a look on SoundCloud. Alright? And I will also be holding a special giveaway for this interview. I will be giving away 8 keys for the game Infestation Survivor Stories. To participate, you just access the first link in the description and respond to gaps, recalling that the last answer is the Supremo Gaming. So that's it, until next time and later.